Welcome, everyone, back to the broadcast. I'm David Woods from Bruin Report Online, the UCLA site on the 24/7 Sports Network, and I'm joined by Tracy Pearson. And today, we are joined by UCLA basketball coach Mick Cronin. Mick, thanks for joining us.
What's up, man?
How you doing, Coach?
It's good. Good to be here. It's hard to say that we're still in school.
Yeah.
But for those of us how the summer's going, we're still in the spring quarter. So as we record, we're in the last week of classes, which workouts have to end last week with per NCAA rule. With you have to have a week off of workouts before finals. So we won't start back. So we just got done with our workouts. We'll start back up. Our 8 weeks of summer is the total opposite of the rest of the college basketball. Ours is July, August, where others have already started their summer workouts. We're still in the spring quarter. So we'll go July, August, where our guys will be off in June with their workouts. They're not obviously on their own, but our spring workouts will be over, and we won't start summer for a little while.
Is there any
how are you feeling anyway? First off, I know you were going through a little bit of how hard is that when you got kind of a serious cold going on and you're trying to get through practice?
Yeah, well, we only have a few guys, right?
Yeah.
So the key, look, my feeling in the spring, first of all, your guys are burnt out. So my number one goal with spring workouts is get healthy. So with Sebastian Mack, it was stay off his toe. Turf toe is brutal. Fortunately, he didn't have it to a point where he needed surgery. But he literally had started running a different way and jumping a different way. So, and we'll get to Dave Andrews, our new strength and conditioning coach. But as he got in and immediately got to work on getting to know the guys we have and their functionality and stuff, he was telling me about how Sebastian, I'm trying to get my hands up here, was basically turning one out so he wouldn't push off this big toe. I guess it would be this. But just getting him healthy to back where he can have his athleticism back and get. So he had to stay off, basically do stationary shooting, get Lazarus Foot healthy, and just getting everybody mentally healthy. It's just, our sports become so year-round, guys. The stories of Coach Wooden used to write guys letters, and he'd see them in September. I think that if I could offer any advice to younger coaches, it would be smart. Coach Wooden, right? Don't mistake activity for achievement. Achievement for us is get healthy in the spring, get right. Basketball wise, it's I'm a big believer you got to become a better shooter. Everybody, and not just see people say, well, yeah, your team struggled shooting this year, but you take our best shooter, Lazar. Just every basketball player in general. When I'm asked, I give the same answer to every parent of every friend of every kid. You cannot shoot the ball well enough. In today's game, that is the game. So we spend most of our time in the spring on that because it's not as taxing on their bodies either. We're not doing you're not going to take them through defensive drills and jump stops, which are hard on their knees. We stay away from that stuff and try to focus on their body development, which is get healthy, get stronger, and shoot the ball better and really break down mechanics. So I make the assistants do most of the talking with that. I just give I'm basically giving guys the things they need to do better mechanically. But as far as taking them through the drills and all that, I need a break as well. And they need a break from my voice. I need a break from my voice. So that went well. We chart everything. Everything's on numbers. I don't believe you should ever shoot the ball in practice without on a clock, on a timer, so their game speed. And you should never shoot the ball without charting your makes and misses and your percentages. Who would go in the weight room and just randomly lift weights would be my analogy, right? If you're going to go into, everybody knows, hey, you know, I bench 180, now I bench 190, now I bench 200. Like, you know, in a 2-minute shooting drill, you should know that my average is 35. Last summer, my average is 40 this summer. Hence, I'm a better shooter. If you're not getting better, there's things you need to change. So you should never just go shoot around. I think that the way too much of that goes on in our sport.
With Sebastian and Lazar, what's their timetable getting back to kind of full health on those?
They're both feeling good. Sebastian, the last couple of weeks of workouts, was back. You know, he actually, you know, he's just such a competitor. He tried to jump right into workouts. I had to pull him out. You know, because you could just see, you know, it was that, you know, he's telling our trainer, you know, I'm fine, I'm okay. But then you watch him and you can see it. You could just see, you see him favoring it. Right. That foot with the big toe. Where Lazar's older, he understands, you know, with his foot issue. But they're both good now. So successful spring when you get two guys healthy.
Would you say, since you've emphasized outside shooting, would you say that you got 6 scholarship guys, I think, right?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Would you say,
I don't have it in front of me, so
I think let's just go with that. Would you say you've seen improvement in their outside shooting? And this is a new thing, is what you're saying, because basketball's going this way.
Oh, it's already going that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't do this 10 years ago as much as you're doing this now.
You'd be shocked. You know, it's funny. In 2000, you know, my time with Coach Pitino, we spent a lot of time on it. And back to my days of, you know, being the son of a coach, my dad said this stuff to me when I was in 7th grade. And then, you know, my time with at Cincinnati, we were so athletic and so tough. I was the workout guy. Coach Huggins didn't really do individual workouts. It was, you know, it was like, if we can make shots, we'll never lose. We were so athletic and so we rebounded it so well. My days at 5-star camp, though, were great for me, of watching some of the veteran guys that were the speakers and presenters there with that. And interestingly enough, you know, in my background, you guys know I worked 5 years with Coach Huggins, who's in the Hall of Fame and is known as one of the best defensive and rebounding coaches ever. But there was a time he was the leading scorer in the history of Ohio high school basketball, and an elite shooter, can really shoot the ball, and was an excellent teacher of shooting the basketball. So my time, you know, it's funny, we didn't have a lot of great shooters in our time there, but his teaching of shooting as good as I've seen. And I've obviously now with Instagram and video and YouTube, and you can watch them all. And I'm good friends with the legendary, a couple coaches that are shooting coaches, especially Dave Hoplow, who's tremendous, who's now based out of Florida, but as you know, used to be in LA. Yep. Coach Huggins is as good as there is with that. So, yeah, I've been doing it for a while. I know when I left Murray State a long time ago, one of my players sent me a thing and said, you know, like, because the same thing you hear, well, he's a defensive guy and all this stuff. And they asked the kids, like, you know, Billy Kennedy replaced me. And they went to the NCAA tournament. They asked the kids, you know, is there anything really different? And all the players said, we used to shoot the ball a lot more when Coach Cronin was the coach. So we play really hard when we practice, but we spend time every day on shooting, every day, and always have. So it's just always been part of my background. But, you know, and the same thing, you know, my advice to guys, like I'll give you, when Amari Bailey committed, Coach, what do you think? You know, he and his mother, like, what do you think? You know, that summer before his senior year, Tracy, if you remember, I said, look, I don't care if you play AAU. You need to shoot the ball every day, because I'm telling you, the day is going to come where you can't jump over everybody. You can't take everybody to the rim. And that's just, you know, obviously, and also analytically, is the growth of the 3-point shot. So it's just all these guys. My saying is, you know, your career will either be extinguished or extended by how well you shoot the basketball. Like Jaime's next contract could depend on how well he shoots the basketball the next few years with the Miami Heat. And you know, where obviously he's always going to have his value in being who he is, but his value goes way up if he becomes a 40+% 3-point shooter.
With Sebastian, kind of in that same vein, obviously last year he shot 28%. How much of that, when you're kind of looking at his season, was shot selection versus something mechanical versus the foot itself?
I would tell you his shooting, I mean, look, once the injury happened, but shooting-wise, mechanical. Shot selection would be the shot, in his case, inside the line.
Right.
Hard shots at the rim. Again, stuff you could do in high school, you can't do in college. And that's hard for a young guy to learn. And that's a process he had to go through. I've already talked to Trent Perry about this, that because he's got great size, right? That you're not getting all the layups,
right?
And once Sebastian couldn't draw the fouls anymore, now you have to make shots. So I'd say mechanical. He gets he has his release point gets too low, and your body follows your head. If your head goes back, shoulders follow. So on and so, then body and it's just hard. You got to have balance, and you got to shoot the ball at the proper trajectory, which, everybody say, well, you shoot with arc, but you got to teach a kid how to shoot with arc. And it's you're breaking habits. The biggest key is to get the guy the player to understand and totally buy into breaking his habits. Because in their mind, well, I've made shots. I've had games where I made a lot of shots. But as long as you shoot the ball at the wrong trajectory, not enough arc, and you shoot off balance too much, you're going to shoot a low percentage, even though you might go 6 for 6 one game from 3. I had a guy one time, Marcus Sykes, who's in coaching now, is my buddies, went 7 for 7 in the Carrier Dome. People thought he was Klay Thompson. Then he went a month and didn't make another 3 because he shot line drives. So definitely mechanically, I would say.
With want to get more into players and everything, but last week, obviously, big sad news in UCLA athletics with Bill Walton dying. What are your remembrances of Bill and your connection with him since becoming the UCLA head coach?
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously our condolences go out to Lori and the rest of, his boys and his family. But it's really, I'll be honest with you guys, it's hard to process because I think Bill's wishes were no memorial service. Obviously, at UCLA, people above me are reaching out to the family to see if we can have a celebration of life or something of that nature for him as they did for Coach Wooden. So because the no funeral, it's kind of been hard. I have a text group with Jamal Wilkes, Lucius Allen, Mike Warren, and Andy Hill, and Bill Walton. And it's weird because his number's still on the chain. We've talked about, things that should happen and hopefully can happen would be wish that he would have been here for, like a statue along with Coach Wooden to be bookended by Kareem and Bill Walton with the statues or something that we all would like to see. But it's just so, you can't, he was literally in the basketball world because Kareem has really become such a world ambassador, more in the political arena and the social arena, and he's awesome at it. But because Bill being on TV, right, and he's being the basketball announcer, he's been like the de facto ambassador for UCLA, athletically. So it's a huge loss, not just for his family, but for UCLA. I mean, he was like a living, walking, talking ambassador of positivity for UCLA. So it's I'm sure for you guys it's the same because of the no funeral. None of us knew how sick he was. I knew something was off late in the year when he was supposed to call the last game, the Arizona State game, and didn't. But we didn't know what it was. and he was a very quiet guy. And Andy Hill and he were best friends, and Andy didn't even know until a few weeks before Bill passed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, it's amazing. We've done some things on the site. Just obviously, he touched a lot of lives because, like you said, he was Bill Walton. He was on TV, but he personally touched a lot of lives. There was a lot of personal experiences where people had interaction with him, where he had a big impact on their lives, which is pretty amazing. And then you go to the fact about the impact on people's lives through UCLA. But when I was in my I was 13 years old when he graduated, and he was the reason why I became such an obsessive UCLA basketball fan, because he was, I wrote an article where I think he's the best college basketball player of all time.
Yeah. Well, again, you're showing your age there.
I'm showing my age.
Showing your age there. For me, he was a great sixth man with the unbelievable Celtics team. So it was just stories of my father telling me how good he was prior to the injuries, and that there was an argument that he was as good, maybe as Kareem, at the college level. But obviously, I didn't get to see either one of those guys play in college. So, everybody knows about the Memphis game. The videos I watch a lot of the videos, everything that was posted and all that stuff, trying to find stuff just to go through my own process of the grieving, and watching so many videos, I realized how he was such a good shot blocker. His timing, just unbelievably coordinated for a guy his size.
And they didn't record shot blocking as a stat until like 1996.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine what, him and Kareem, their shot blocking statistics in college games back then.
Yeah.
He averaged, I mean, he's 6'11", 7 foot. He averaged 5.5 assists a game.
Oh yeah. And that's back when you had to really actually create a shot for a guy.
Yeah.
Now you just reverse the ball and a guy shoots it in, you get an assist.
Yeah.
And I think in the NBA, the guy can actually dribble it after you pass it and score, and you still get an assist. So
yeah, 5 minutes later, he's still dribbling and you still get an assist.
Yeah, the NBA loves those numbers.
Yeah,
I used to talk to the great Oscar Robertson in my Cincinnati days about that. Much harder to get an assist back then.
Yeah.
This this off season, kind of different from last year. Recruiting
or any other year.
Recruiting's already over for you. And last year, I think you were still sweating transcripts and admission and everything deep into August or September. So I guess the big question is, how's the golf game going?
Yeah. The good thing about that is I don't get frustrated. Right. So I know mentally, after 21 years as a head coach, that I have to get outside. It's a great way to be an ambassador for our school, great way to touch all of our supporters and donors, and a great way for me to actually go outside. As you guys know, I'm not laying in the sun. I'm not a beach guy, especially when you've had stuff cut off you like Tracy and I have had.
Right here, baby.
I got it done. Yeah. So the key to my golf game is the huge sunblock can that goes on me before.
What kind of SPF are we working with these days?
Oh, we're working with the highest level.
You can't get high enough.
Are you 100% Irish? Where are we on the Irish scale?
I'd say more like 80, 90. My grandmother on my mother's side was German.
Okay.
Got it. Mangold. So, but other than that, it's all Irish. So the skin is definitely all Irish. So, but it's just, you have to do some stuff so you can kill two birds with one stone, right? With trying to be an ambassador for the school, especially now where fundraising is a big part of our job, man.
Yeah. So being a good golfer helps.
I don't know if some would consider me good.
I've heard you're pretty good. You don't have to be that
Yeah, I mean, I'm good at not caring. I'm out there, and I'm like, if it could be worse. One thing I know, there's people see how the way I coach, and they're probably like, that guy's a lunatic on the golf course. It's the dead opposite. Yeah, I'm just happy to be out there. So, yeah, I'm good. I'm not the intense guy that you see at all. I've never thrown a club.
I was going to say, have you thrown a club?
That's Savino. That's Darren. That's all.
Really?
Darren.
That's Savino.
The Italian jersey. The jersey comes out. You can't hide the jersey.
Oh, that's fun.
You can't hide. He just keeps his line is, "I'm an athlete. I should be better." And I think you know what? This has nothing to do with athleticism.
Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
And anger will not help you.
No, but yeah, you can't hide. Look, the jersey, you can't hide the jersey. No. Comes out.
So if we're talking about this offseason rather than golf too, there was that little thing called the transfer portal.
Just a minor thing.
It's just that little thing. So I mean, first off, there's so much we want to talk about in regard to what you accomplished.
Thank goodness I got me a nice coffee here.
There you go. Going in, what were your goals for the transfer portal? Let's just start off with that. When the transfer portal opened up, what were your objectives?
Well, it's funny, Coach Self got banged on, Trace, about like saying, and what did he said? They asked him something about next year.
I'm already thinking about the transfer portal or something.
He said he had been thinking about it for months.
Right.
This was in when they lost in the NCAA tournament. He got banged on it. And it's like, well, hold on. We're all thinking ahead. Even in the days before the portal, you're thinking about building your next team. I think he got banged on. So, he's not trying. He had punted. No. So, I'll go back to last summer. I was thinking about this coming year, about I got to raise more money so we can get in the transfer portal and be competitive, because we couldn't be competitive in the portal the previous year. And hence why we had so many freshmen. It wasn't by choosing. So this, for me, it goes way back. And the answer, Tracy, is the easiest answer of any question you've ever asked me. When you're coaching at UCLA, you better try to put together a team that can get to the Final Four and compete for the whole thing. If not, I'd have stayed at Cincinnati and, been the winningest coach ever, at least for, till they threw the dirt over and the next guy would have done it. So so for me, it's, I love being here, and you and I have gotten to know each other, and I have a lot of close friends, and people didn't realize why I wanted to be here. But the UCLA, being a UCLA coach is like, to me, it's like being the Cowboys or the Cowboys coach or the manager of the Yankees. So your goal better be to try to have one of the best teams. So that's all I was thinking about. And that's all I'm ever thinking about. How can we have the best team possible? And again, to quote Coach Wooden, the guy with the best players usually wins.
So you had said before that when it came to NIL, you were the Cincinnati Reds at one point.
Well, I didn't say we were.
Right.
In that press conference, I just said, all I said was, if you think Shohei Ohtani picked the Dodgers for the weather, you're nuts.
Right.
The Reds wanted him too, like just because they weren't in the running. So the reference was, I think Ben or somebody said something to me about transfers, and I shunned transfers to take all freshmen. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? It's well documented that, Evo recruited Cam Spencer to Loyola. And, he would have been a walk in the park for us if we could have financially competed to get him. So amongst others, but anyway, my answer was, that just doesn't mean the Reds didn't want Shohei Ohtani. They couldn't get in the running. I think that's.
Would you say you're in the running now? Things have changed.
Oh yeah, but that's what I spent all my time on.
Yeah.
Can you give everyone a picture of what that looked like? building the fundraising, building NIL.
Well, it also started, and it just wasn't recent. It's when
the last
first
year
were hired.
No, it's been going on for 3 years. It's been Dave, it's been a build-up of 3 years. I think, look, the give you the shortest answer possible. We had some really good teams when NIL started. And some kids like Jaime, that if his dad and if Big Jaime and Jaime were sitting next to me, a lot of kids like him were made $200,000 to $500,000 Jaime's senior year, where UCLA and our fundraising was so behind because of loyalty. It was like, well, what do we need to do? What do you mean? First of all, what is NIL? And in defense, look, I'm not knocking anybody. So it's just that you're asking me, I'm giving you the facts.
Right.
When you got guys like Tiger, Jaime, and David all stay, regardless of money, where they could have gone in the portal and made a lot of money. You have a Dem and Amari that came regardless of NIL. Their goal was be on a great team, try to make the NBA. So those guys were, David, Tiger, Jaime, and Jalen Clark. Their goals were NBA. I'm already at UCLA. I love it here. We got a great team. I'm not going to worry about it. And at that time, NIL money was getting to it was six figures, but it wasn't getting to where it is today. So the money wasn't so much where it's like, man, coach, I love you, but I got to go. So we had a great team without great NIL program. And I don't think people really understood, as I was warning them, what was going to happen. The product on the floor, maybe our best team, was 2 years ago.
Right.
Of a team where I said, I'm trying to get NIL, and the guys all stayed anyway. So, if you're a donor, you're sitting there and you're thinking, look at our team. I mean, arguably, we could have won the national championship or definitely been one of the favorites to win it without Jalen and Adem going down. So, to quote my friend Josh Rebholz, who's who I'm going to miss, has moved on to the private world. When you're watching TV late at night and they're asking for you to donate money to the dog shelter, they don't show you a picture of a happy dog running around the backyard. They show you a picture of the skinny dog struggling in his cage. So we struggled this year, and it helped.
You were that skinny dog in the cage.
The problem was the year before, we're running around with one of the best teams in the country. So, sometimes it has to happen that way. So it's just a process of trying, in defense of people. I think a lot of people have given two things. A lot of your donors have given so much money over the years that you're going back to the well so many times to the same people.
Right.
That's number one. And number two is just a lack of understanding. Is this legal? And you have people that are serious people in our community that, they don't want to be involved with anything they don't understand. They're used to philanthropy, and so in defense of them, it's just a very, the whole thing was extremely confusing to everybody. And people still don't even understand what the hell we're talking about right now. So, the last piece of that is, we had really good teams. So why is this such a big deal?
Right.
So yeah, it's just, now it's, we're going to get to the end of this. People probably don't want to hear, they want to hear about the team, but at some point you're going to say, well, where's college sports headed and all these rules? Are we getting rid of NIL as we go to pay players? Which I think, I don't think it's ever going away. It's definitely not going away in my era. So, now they're going to try to make it what they say. I think, what was the word that was used at the Big Ten meetings? Fair market value.
Mm.
The problem with that is, guys, who determines that?
Who determines the fair market value?
Right. So if 247 Bruin. Well, I don't want to mess up your name, Tracy.
Bruin Report Online.
Bruin
Report Online. If Bruin Report Online decides they want to pay a guy, I mean, who's somebody else to tell you you're paying him too much to be your, spokesman? So who determines fair market? To Dave's point, who determines that? So, getting basically, I think, there's people out there that are hopeful that collectives will go away when it goes to the university paying the team, the kids, the athletes. So I just don't see. I'm not optimistic on that. I don't see how that happens. Would the day ever come where everybody has the same amount of money to play with? They're never going to put a cap on it, guys. That'll never fly. Though, and the NCAA has settled the quick end of this. The NCAA had to settle these lawsuits to exist. I don't think the regular fan out there understands that if they would not have settled these lawsuits. This isn't me. This is the higher ups of the NCAA and the SEC and the Big Ten. If they wouldn't have settled these lawsuits, they would have lost all three, and $16 billion, something like that. And that would have been the end of college sports, bankrupt city. So to settle for around $4 billion, they can pay it off over the next 10 years in the settlement. Hopefully, that if you like college sports, pray that the judge on the case accepts the settlements, and that people in our government realize these kids do not want employee status. That's the worst thing for the kids. The worst thing for them is to get that. It's going to hurt them, not help them. And they'll still get all their money and be protected by the student athlete status. So, we got to get all this going forward. But 3 years ago, guys, I mean, can you imagine that we're even having these conversations? It's just, but you have to embrace it all when you're in the position that I'm in. Martin Jarman's in. Obviously, we got a new chancellor coming in. Because if you want to quote the best quote I saw, guys, is the Notre Dame president. Basically, he said, we got to get these lawsuits settled, and we got to get our government to help us form some sort of system that's going to protect college athletes, so we can have rules to protect them. Because if it goes to all business and all revenue, a lot of sports are going away.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities.
You would say how, why? If it goes to all business and all revenue, a lot of sports are going away, and that is really bad for America. Obviously, bad for a lot of kids, future kids. It's just really it would be tragic, a tragic end to intercollegiate athletics to just have revenue sports. So. I think that would be. I think our, hopefully the powers that be in the government care enough to understand that if their daughter is a fifth grader and she's a really good soccer player, that there will be, there'll be college soccer, not just club soccer at the college level. So that if they don't fix it, that's a reality. I don't think people can really grasp it. There's just only so much money, and if it all becomes business and the money all goes to revenue sports, that's where we'll all end up. There's not any more money out there. There is no hidden money where the schools are making all this money and keeping it. Not the case. 99% of the schools are losing money and subsidizing athletics.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the fun part of the transfer portal. Talk a little bit about the guys who have signed that you got from the transfer portal.
Yeah, well, you fire away and we'll go down the list. We got 2 high school and 6 transfers.
Yeah. First, a couple of guys that you saw firsthand in the Pac-12, Tyler Bilodeau and Kobe Johnson. Talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of both of those guys. Big advantage when you're playing against guys and they're playing in the Pac-12, because not only are you scouting them for years, you're watching film of other teams, right? And so if you're scouting Arizona, you're watching USC all the time. because they're playing the team right before us half the time. So you see USC more than anybody else. Because if you're playing on Saturday, the first thing you're doing is watching their Thursday game. As soon as your game gets over. Unbelievable familiarity with Kobe. And I think that he has every bit the chance to be drafted in the first round next year because I think he can be just the defender that Jalen Clark is. He's taller. His shooting numbers are better. His ball handling in the pick and roll. He was on first round mocks last summer for this draft. Obviously, their season went kind of weird, and bad for him, good for us. So really excited. He because when guys defend, guys can pass and guys can shoot. He does all three. I think he'll immediately become a better rebounder. I mean, look, Lazar Stefanovic went from 2 to 6 rebounds just by coming playing at UCLA, just because of the way we do things. So he's definitely going to. I think Kobe is around 4, but he already is a good passer. He's a good shooter. I think he'll get better. But going in, I think he can compete for the Jalen Clark Award, which would be Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's got those. It's in his DNA. You don't have to ask him to do it. He wants to be the best defensive player on the floor. So Tyler Bilodeau was one of those guys. Was crazy, when his freshman year. When I saw him, I was on my coaching staff. Like, why the hell didn't we recruit this guy? Where'd he come from? Guys from the West Coast. Well, I mean, and then I find out he played AAU for a close friend of mine. I'm all over Carl Howe. Like, he's like, I swear he was 6'5". He was 6'5", 190, maybe 6'6". Then he becomes 6'9", and 220. So Wayne Tinkle did a great job of developing Tyler. I'm good friends with Coach Tinkle. And Tyler's a worker, right? He's got parents both played professional sports. So he's got toughness. His dad's a hockey player. His mother played as an enforcer in the WNBA. So he's got the DNA, as he's just a late bloomer. And I was like, where did this guy come from? Tracy, did you ever see him?
I never saw him. If I did, I didn't know.
Yeah, because I was mad at you too. You could have mentioned him.
Yeah, I understand.
You're out there at the same tournaments I'm at. But no,
I've got enough cover though. No one saw him play.
No one saw him.
Yeah.
Well, he played on the Under Armour circuit with Carl Howe. So anyway, he, when you go to prepare and it's like, what are we going to do if they throw this guy the ball? Because he scores. I say this in college. Jaime could do this. Very few guys can score when defended. They need to get around a guy, what we call creating an angle to score, or somebody to create a shot for them to get, or they need to create their own shot where they can get open. He can make guarded shots 15 feet and in. Like, it doesn't bother him at all. He shoots, he's got a high release, he can turn both ways, and he scores over people, which, that's very rare at the college level. And he's really developed his 3-point shooting. My pitch with him was, we got to get you to where you can defend on the perimeter. When you start to look at guys, okay, well, here's who you are now. And this is, you're going to help us because you can get buckets, right? You can score in a lot of ways. You can play small with him. You can play small ball with him. And, what big guy could possibly guard Tyler out on at the 3-point line? You put a smaller guy on him, obviously they're going to struggle with him in the post. And we got fortunate in the Pac-12 tournament because he got in foul trouble and he never got involved in the game. So he's we need his scoring, but again, my pitch to him was defensively. What I told Jaime all the time, you're going to be a guy in the NBA that's always the role guy. Even if you get up to where you're the starter, you're going to be the third, fourth guy. You got to be able to defend, rebound, be a hustle guy. In college, you're a scorer. Up there, it's going to change for you, right? So, working on Tyler's foot speed and his ability to defend a lot of people. And I think he just wanted to win. And, so my pitch with these guys, is, all of us, we go down the list is, look, I said this to all our returning guys. Look, I love everybody, but this is UCLA. We got to get as many good players as we can. That's just, we all signed up for that when we came here. And, if you don't think you're going to play and you want to go somewhere else, I love you and I'm going to help you. But to the guys coming in, it was, let's get as many of you as we can and have the best team we can. So I think Tyler really, he and Kobe were, they're veteran guys. So they were into the whole, let's load it up and win.
That's two other just really fast. Sorry, Dave. While I remember, I got to talk about things when they come up.
Yeah, we're over 50, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Dave's getting there too.
Yeah,
so it seems like though, and you and I have talked about this before. Players want to stay at UCLA. I mean, it's a credit to you and your program, but players want to stay at UCLA too. Like there were guys who were on your roster, and you were obviously, like you said, you were trying to bring in as much talent as you can, and it's a testament to the guys that they wanted to stay in the program and be coached by you.
Well, look around, when I say, I mean, I picked this computer up and look, not many guys coach with palm trees outside their office, buddy. Not a lot of kids in a hurry to leave Westwood. So, you got the factor of, once you get here, you realize like I literally go to one of the best schools in the country. It's definitely the best campus in the country. You try to, I think people see us on the outside, they see my intensity, but everything is with love. I just spell love and discipline and the same, and you try to be honest with guys. And guys are in practice. I think what people don't realize is they say, well, he yelled at that guy. I couldn't take that. Well, yeah, you could. If I told you to take the garbage out 10 straight days and you didn't do it, wouldn't you expect me to finally get a little pissed off? I mean, so the guys know I don't get upset for no reason, And also, it's like they all know I'm just trying to make them a better player and that we have a standard. You're trying to get them ready for the real world. Because here you might you might see my intensity, but in the real world you're going to get cut, you're going to lose your job, which is getting cut as a basketball player. Losing your job is in the in the business world or what have you, or if you're working for yourself, your business is going to fail if you don't work hard and do things the right way. So regardless of NIL or whatever, I'm not going to change, because you got to try to help these guys get ready to have a successful life, or you're really not doing your job. I would tell my guys, I'm not a pimp. I'm not just trying to use you. I'm never going to be that. It's never going to be just about win games. And I may have developed a reputation. You go to recruit and some kids are looking at you like, well, I saw that, he's going to get on you. And, this world of, just stand there and say, hey, nice job, guys. Like to me, you're just using the kid. What, right? You know what he needs to hear. Guys not doing what he needs to do academically, like whatever the case may be. You got to tell. It's your job to tell guys the truth. And I guess my answer to that is our guys to me, young people appreciate that. To me, young people sometimes act out to get your attention. They want you to discipline. They want you to notice them. I mean, that's the biggest thing with families, right? Parents don't pay attention to their kids. They tend to get in trouble just to get their parents to pay attention to them. So my guys don't have to do that. I'm paying attention. So they have a standard. You also have to have a standard. The great thing about, I don't know how to post anything. Thank goodness Alex would have to do that for me. But I do, my kid, my stepson and my daughter taught me how to watch. So I watch as much Nick Saban and different guys as I can, and it's like, well, how could you want to be the best player you can be? Shouldn't you want a coach that's going to make you that and give you no choice? Or do you just think that's going to just randomly happen? So yeah. We talk about all these types of things. I try to show that everything comes from a place of love. And, I tell them all the time, like, how could you possibly make it if you can't, If you can't make an open shot, you're not going to make it. I don't care where Tracy lives out there, Dave. He goes to these events, man. The world's crazy. Oh, this guy's a pro. He can only dribble with one hand. He's a below average shooter, and he's 6'4". But he's a pro because somebody ranked him high and he can dunk. Right? I mean, Tracy's laughing because he's seen thousands of these guys, thousands of them. So, somebody's got to be there to give them the honesty of what the reality of what's really coming.
Yeah, that doesn't help anyway. When you're talking to recruits.
No.
We got some more transfers to cover.
Yeah, we got 2 out. We got 4 more to go.
Yeah, you had a history with Sky Clark.
Oh yeah, known Sky since his sophomore year at Heritage Christian.
Tell us how that all.
Yeah, Heritage Christian. I used to take my daughter to be doing her homework her first year, 7th grade at Campbell Hall to watch Sky, because it's Heritage Christian not far from my house in Encino. So, Sky's always been a great player. He had that injury, as you remember, Tracy, when he went to Montverde, and then his dad fell ill his freshman year at Illinois, and it was scary. And that's where he wanted to be with his dad. That's the truth of why he didn't play the rest of that season after Christmas. And then was Louisville's leading scorer this year. He had 35 in their last game. He's always wanted to come home. He's wanted to come to UCLA the whole time. Things always tend to work out for a reason. He's kind of I didn't get to know Johnny, back in the days of Johnny or Miles. I wasn't here, but I got to know Sky, so I had a previous relationship, and I can tell he's always wanted to go to UCLA. So he's an LA kid. He grew up here, so he wants to come home. And some of our guys are frustrated because we're on this quarter system, and they want to be here because they were in the semesters and they ended in April or a month ago. They're done with school. They want to start summer workouts. So, Sky can't get here fast enough. He's an LA kid.
There's one transfer before we get into it. I think there's one transfer we actually can't talk about yet. Just so we don't get in trouble. And then there's 2 others. And these are the guys who maybe you had the least familiarity with coming into the process. Eric Daly from Oklahoma State and William Kyle from South Dakota State. How did this one happen? Was it they came into the portal and you saw them the first time there? Did you get recommendations from anyone?
Well, we'll start with Eric. I always knew Eric because I saw him in AAU. And then he played at IMG for a close friend of mine, Jimmy Carr. So he was one of those guys. I used to always ask Darren, like, you think we could ever get that guy? Because, when you look at a guy in the 6'6" to 6'7" range that can do everything, those are the hardest. They make your team really hard because you can play them in a lot of positions and get the mismatch you want. And as you develop their game of decision making and shot making, and he's a great athlete. So. And I didn't know at the time. I just knew, I knew I saw him. And I used to always say, like, Darren, call Jimmy, see if we could get, is there any way we could get him? And it was, so he was not a new one for me. And then I remember when he went to Oklahoma State, I said, well, we could have got him. Eric being his mother coached at Florida and really just being a Florida kid. His dad played overseas forever, Eric Sr. So, we didn't think he'd go that far. But he's such a worker, and it just so happened that their family advising friend, Rashad Phillips, is somebody I know from my days. He's a Detroit guy, and there's a big connection of Midwest toughness between Cincinnati and Detroit. I have a lot of friends from Detroit. I know Rashad as a player back in his days at Detroit Mercy. And we always have had mutual respect. Sometimes the ball just falls that way, and as soon as he went in the portal, Darren called and he was like, hey, do you know Rashad Phillips? I'm like, you talking about he was a really good player. He scored a lot of points. And it was just, it really wasn't that hard because he comes from such a basketball family. Both of his parents appreciate UCLA, the tradition, the history of, and the power of UCLA as far as helping guys to the NBA. The power of the summer options of we'll work out and we finish workouts and they go up to the men's gym and play with NBA players. Like they get all of everything that goes into the things that we have to sell about the advantages of UCLA. His parents already understood, because they're basketball people. So, and it just so happened, he played high school for a close friend. And then, he's worked out with his advising was being done by somebody that, I have great respect for. And we come from the same area. So that one just kind of worked out. Now, William Kyle was a totally different story. Obviously we spent a lot of time with Adem, and I give Adem Bona credit. I appreciate him. I love him. We'll always be very close because it was it could have been a much tougher conversation if Adem would have said, oh, look, I want to go through the process and given me an answer 3 days ago when everybody else, when was it? May 29th or something.
Yeah.
He knew, look, I know you got to get somebody. And I said, well, take a few weeks, decompress, then talk to everybody you need to talk to me last. I'll give you my opinion. And then we'll move forward from there. And this was obviously a long time ago, which gave us, because he knew we needed time to replace him. Because, so during that process, we were putting together a list as guys were going into the portal. So Darren was on William Kyle early. And, obviously once Adem's thing became official, that's when I had to start getting involved. I was on the other guys. And once the Adem thing became official, then we had to figure out who's the best fit for us. Obviously Adai and Devin are longer guys, and we needed somebody that physically would be able to fill the void that Adem was going to leave from a physical athletic standpoint. And look, it's UCLA. Big thing that the advantage of being here is the quality of person you can get. The guys we've talked about already. Sky was a straight A student at Heritage Christian. I get on him because it's like, hey man, I know how good of a student you were. Kobe Johnson, his parents are just awesome. Same with Tyler Bilodeau, Eric Daly, and just quality humans that you can get. So it allows you to win more, allows you to coach more. And like William Kyle is just an unbelievable person from a great family. He was a track guy. Big, he's a high jump guy. And during COVID, he switched over to basketball. His dad was a track guy. It was, and just a great family. His visit was really cool because he committed on his visit. I'm not sure when he announced it after, but he committed on his visit. His dad was crying. It was great. So just great kid, just a really good kid, a heck of an athlete. I mean, he dunks it like when you watch his highlights and you see how big his hands are. I mean, he throws it down like a Nerf ball. He's got, so he so people say, how this guy, like, you always wonder, like guys like him and Tyler Bilodeau, where the hell were these guys at in AAU? As you're sitting in all these gyms, you're trying to find these gems. And I'm like, man, that's my staff. Now I'm going to let him recruit this guy, but he was high jumping. And he didn't really until COVID is when he started playing basketball and getting serious about basketball. And then guys tend to grow, their body develops, they get stronger. And that was the case with William Kyle and his development. And man, South Dakota State's become an unbelievable program as far as They had a big guy, but before the portal he got drafted. I can't remember his name. Before the kid went to Creighton, and now you got William coming to us and his teammate going to Kansas. They got a heck of a program.
So really great. I know there's just a quick story. I heard that on his visit, you were meeting with him, you were going over some tape, and he pretty much just tell us what I heard that he pretty much interrupted you and said, Coach, I want to commit right now, or something along those lines.
Basically, he's like, well, I already know, I've already made my decision. And his dad froze. His dad froze, and I was like, he's like, well, I've basically already made my decision. And and he's just a real thoughtful, intelligent kid. So, it reminds me, look, nobody's going to have the test scores of Miles Johnson, but he reminds me of Miles, and that, he's so intelligent, so thoughtful. His maturity level is so high. Like, you could tell he had probably already had done this all in a notebook, and he probably said, look, if I go there and I like this is where I'm going. A guy like him, it wasn't like, we just talked him into it. He had definitely thought it all out. His dad was like, hold on a minute. He's like, Coach, I'm not trying to stop him, but, I got to be a parent. I said, hey, I'm a parent. I get it. And I don't want, my thing with all of our recruits is, it's not just you, it's your family. Everybody's got to be on board. So take your time, and he was, so, they had their little sidebar, but, his dad knew, he had already processed a lot of things. So, but it was really cool. So, he's a great athlete. We need, we need a veteran guy that can do. I think we can, we can help him develop offensively. We got to work on his free throw shooting, his 15-footer, his one-on-one game. But, it's an easy sell. Look, Darren and Rod and Yogi and Nate and BT are we have a great coaching staff. Nobody here was hired to get a player or for connections. These guys are all great coaches. And all you got to do, is look at the development just look at Lazar's development, last year. Look at Dylan's. Look at Jaime's. Look at Jalen Clark's. I can keep going now. Look at Jules. People were on me like, you got to get rid of Jules my first year. I don't read your website.
No, they were saying it there too.
Yeah, don't. You should.
Don't ever. Please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't read your website.
You can read what we write.
I
got
you.
Yeah.
Don't ever.
Look,
don't ever
with all that stuff, that's a whole. But people were, look at Jules' development. Johnny's sat on the bench and then became a star. But with big guys, look at it down. He was a runner, jumper, never touched the ball, prolific prep, and working with us, and Darren did such a good job with him. Becomes a double-figure scorer for us. So, so I think William saw that stuff. He's a worker. So look, it goes to the recruiting guys, and we talked about it earlier. Guys tend to gravitate towards us that have maturity, because they understand that coaching is good for you. And that is I know, like I said, well, that's a simple statement. Well, that isn't always the most popular prevailing thought in the world of recruiting, that it needs to be let him play. Well, how about help him get better so he can play for a living?
Well, that's a good segue to talk about Eric Freeney.
Yeah, Eric and Trent.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, as we speak, is still 17, which I'm not going to name names, but he could be going into his junior year and end up at prolific, and there's kids that that are going to be freshmen that Eric is 2 years younger than, same as Brandon Williams. But Eric's he's just a great kid. He's just a great kid. He can shoot the ball, and he's tough as hell. I think, that those are extreme. Look, you say I always go back to this when I always get on here with you guys. There's two kind of players. There's guys that help you win. There's guys that don't. You know, and rankings don't help you win. Okay. If you can defend and you're tough as hell and you can shoot the ball, you're going to help somebody win. Everybody in the draft in 3 weeks is looking for guys like that, by the way. You know, so, you know, Free is he's a young guy, obviously on a team with some older guys, but you know, I'm a big believer in him.
How about Trent Perry? That was
that shocked some people.
Yeah, a very interesting story from where it was last summer, his recruitment. And
yeah, well, you know, when you're staring down the barrel, you have all these freshmen. You don't know where the portal's all headed. Like, you know, it's like, well, we can only take we only have so many scholarships, right? And then the reality of it is you get to a point where you realize, well, you have a lot of scholarships because everybody's a free agent every year. You know, that's the truth. Well, if I would have known that and thought that way, that, you know, but this was all so new, you know, I'm used to, well, you sign guys, they're all going to be here. You're going to develop them, and that's just the way college basketball goes. Right. And then all of a sudden it's not that way anymore. Because what people realized last summer, the rule was you could transfer once.
Right.
It was like, well, these guys transferred, now that'll all slow down. And then during the season, there was a court injunction for the listeners. And so the guys that transferred twice got to play starting in the middle of December. Yeah. They were all not playing. They all end up getting to play, which hurt us because, you know, we were following the written rules, which all got thrown out the window. You know, those guys got to play. And then when you get to the spring, they say there is no more limit on transferring. They just threw the rule completely out because they were going to lose in court. So they just trial transfer whenever you want. So, you know, it was like, I said, well, hey man, I can't say why, but in needing to be at multiple Harvard Westlake games, like I personally was this year, I had to sit there and watch Trent Perry. And as these rules are changing, and I'm like, you know, this is going to be free agency this spring. It's like, this is crazy because, I mean, this guy's a great player and he's a great kid. You know, he would always say hi. I was there a lot. So, you know, his parents were always, you know, we left on good terms. And I mean, it was just evident to me, like, man, you know, now I never thought Coach Enfield was leaving USC. So, right. But I got to see many, many times how this past year, his team at Harvard Westlake, and you know, I was upset that he wasn't going to be a Bruin all season as I was sitting at those games. So he's got great size for a guard. He's extremely intelligent. And he's what I call a plus player. He doesn't a lot of guards coming into college, you got to get rid of certain habits. They're high volume shooters, or they get assists, but they have just as many turnovers. That is not Trent. Trent is not, he's a plus guy. Like, he'll score, he'll assist, he'll take, so he doesn't, it's not plus negative is what I'm saying. It's like, it's not like, well, you know, he made a shot, then he takes a crazy hard shot. He's just, and that's a credit to Coach Rabibo at Harvard Westlake, and playing in a 2-time back-to-back state championship program that, you know, you're playing to win. You're not playing for stats. And that's why, you know, he, like when you watch him, he stands out like a sore thumb, because in this era, there's a lot of guards that score points, but they're taking 25 shots to get 18 points in a high school game. You know, Trent, I mean, it's just not who he is. He's playing to win. So, like, I saw them enough where there were games where he won with defense. There were games he had to step it up with his scoring. There were games he had to go hit the glass and get a few big offensive rebounds because they were struggling. He can do a lot of stuff. I don't want to put the pressure on him. So you can, he's not the athlete that Russell, you know, is still to this day. It's amazing. That's how. So you can't compare anybody to Russell because he's crazy how good of an athlete he is. He can play linebacker in the NFL probably, but he's got size like Russell Westbrook. He's got a pro career because of his size and his ability to do everything on the court. He can make decisions. He can make shots. He can play defense. He's smart. So, Trent's got a great future. And my pitch to him, because how'd you get him? Is it's like, look, man, I know we got other guys, but two things. They pay me to try to win the championship. We're at UCLA. That's part of the gig. You're from here, and you can get to the NBA from here. You don't want to leave home anyway. I don't want to let you go anywhere else. Let's just make it work. And if and look, I don't know how long some of these guys will be here. I'm okay with everybody getting drafted. So, my end to all this is, the rising tide lifts all ships, guys. The better we are, the higher guys get drafted. So I don't think it's really mutually exclusive Jaime's draft status and the year that we had. Like, I think the year that we had helped him and, Jalen got drafted with an Achilles. I don't think that Amari got drafted. So I think it matters. And if anything's been proven at UCLA, you can get drafted at UCLA for a lot of reasons. Your talents, you're going to be seen a lot because you're playing in the only city. Now the Nets are in Brooklyn, but you're playing in a city where you have two NBA teams, and the GMs don't miss this trip because of the weather. So when their team's coming here, so you're playing for one of the most exposed, if not the most watched college program by scouts. So it's just panned out over time. Whether it's Zach LaVine, Peyton Watson, many guys have gotten drafted out of here after 1 year. People are saying, I don't, hey, look, it helps us get the next guy, so, Trent and his family talked a lot about this, people said, well, who the hell is going to play? We're going to play to win. I'm excited that we have depth, and I've never, because of our lack of depth, or it was never Tiger strength, for us to really press all the time. So, I envision us being with multiple guards, being able to really get after people and dust off all the stuff that I had done a lot in my career. When I worked for Coach Huggins, we did it. Coach Pitino, we did it. Now they did it differently. I did it at Murray State. I've tried to do it here when I could get Amari and Jalen on the front of that press. It looked good at times, but we weren't the deepest team that year. So I'm really excited about getting all these guys out there and dictating the tempo of the game and using all of them to get the tempo where we need. And that when you do that, playing time tends to take care of itself.
That was going to be my next question about how you make that.
I know we spend enough time. Yeah. People don't realize how much time we spend together sitting in gyms in July.
Yeah, well, you're
places
sitting in those gyms for hours and hours, and you start talking about a lot of things just to pass the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's
bad
a lot
basketball
of
going on, right?
There's some bad basketball. If you watch too much of it, your brain will explode.
Yes.
So that leads me to the next question, because this is a kind of a new era now. What's the approach and strategy with high school recruiting? The transfer portal is just too much. As you saw this year, and I think as many programs across the country are experiencing, it's just too easy of a way to and too lucrative of a way to recruit.
Yeah, the interesting piece of that is now you get asked questions about NIL. We don't even know what the rules are going to be for next year. And I think our now that we're in the Big Ten, Tony, I think our commissioner is the best I've ever been around. and I'm 21 years in as a head coach going to these meetings. He reminds me of Mike Tranghese, who built the Big East. You know, he's as sharp as they come, and he's trying to look. He can't even tell us what the rules are going to be. We got to get this lawsuit behind us. But the problem with all this is, and get the judge to accept, we got to get employment behind. We got to get a set of rules that they'll allow us, that the government will allow us to have. But the reason I bring that up is because you're a recruit, right? Like guys aren't in the portal. That they don't get in the portal till next spring. So the recruitable athletes right now that people would ask about NIL, it's hard to give them answers. We don't know what the rules are going to be next year.
Right.
So, you know, now it's kind of this is the you know, if we were all at a dance, this is kind of where everybody's feeling each other out at the dance. You know, it's not you know, you're not picking your slow dance partner yet. Everybody's just kind of you know, feeling each other out. So those hard questions haven't been asked yet. But I go cut to the chase with my staff and my people. Like, well, you know, what are they looking for? Because right now there's still no rules. You know, NIL, you can just ask. It is what it is. You can all talk openly about it. So, you know, where are we at? What's the thought process? Because then I have to be the bad guy at some point and say, well, look, we don't know what the rules are going to be for next year. So you could agree to something, then that something that you agreed to could not even be legal, theoretically. I don't know if I think it'll, you know, I'm on the
right.
don't. I'm betting the don'ts on that, but you know, Coach Izzo told me I'm the Grim Reaper in my opinions. You know, he's hoping for all this stuff to go smoothly, but so
but Mick, with high school, looking at high school recruiting right now, like you had mentioned, you used to know who was on your roster. You had a good idea.
Yeah.
Now you have no idea. So how do you go into summer and recruit?
I can't name names, right?
Yeah.
But you know some of the elite players, right? That we may or may not have talked to. You know, again, it is what I would say on that is, if you were a high school player, an elite high school player that was looking for a place to be one and done, which most are. I don't think people out there realize the whole top 30. What would you say, Trace? The top 30 or maybe 50?
I'd say easily the top 30, but you could stretch among the top 60 and find 20 to 25 more guys that's not their goal. That's what they think.
They think one and done.
They absolutely think. And their parents and everyone around them.
So they're looking at your roster right now. They're looking at two things: your roster, they're looking at playing time, they're looking at NIL. Okay, well, you don't know what your roster is going to look like, and you don't know what NIL is going to look like. I'm trying to make sure my fingers are in the screen here. You know, so you don't know. You're 0 for 2. Like if say I'm on the other side and I'm a parent, I'm saying, well, coach, what's your roster going to look like? Nobody knows, because you got to be honest. I mean, who knows? I mean,
and that's the funniest part. They're concerned with rosters, but they think they're one and done. So how does that?
Right.
Just how to say, you don't have to call it
that circle.
Yeah, exactly. And Trent and I talked about that a lot, and his parents. And look, I'm all on the parent side. I'm a parent. I want you know, so I totally understand it. Totally. But you know, if history's proven anything, I mean, Kentucky's got 2 guys about to go in the top 10 of the draft that didn't start. So if you're to your point, I think if your talent is your talent,
yeah,
right. Whether, regardless of your college numbers, you know, people always say, you know, how'd Peyton get drafted? Well, when you're 6'8" with long arms, you can run and jump. You know, you're getting drafted. You know, meanwhile, Johnny Juzang doesn't get drafted and leads you to the Final Four, averages 23 a game in the NCAA tournament. You know, the NBA is a whole different animal. But you know, again, Trace, if you're a parent, you're sitting there saying, well, what's the roster going to look like? Well, so I guess the reason I brought it up is, if I was on that side of the fence, I would wait. Why would you sign early?
That makes logical sense, but they're
First of all,
not,
60
and
coaches.
they won't.
It's almost to the number every year. Around 60 coaches change jobs in Division I. That's one point. Second point is every player can now transfer. It used to be, well, who's, the few teams, hey, this guy might go pro or he's going to go pro. Well, now everybody could go pro and everybody could transfer. So aside from coaches could change jobs. So, my advice would be I'd wait. I mean, what's the hurry? I do think there's kids out there, though, that it's like, well, hey, look, if I'm, say, a Southern California kid, I don't care who's on the roster, coach. I want to go to UCLA. I know it's my best pathway.
Right.
It's going to be my best experience. Again, best school, best campus. Okay. I've gotten to know the coaches. All that'll work itself out. So hopefully, if you see us getting a high school guy, that will be his mindset. And the NIL is going to have to match, right?
Yeah.
That'll be the other, you got that piece of it. So but it's got to be like, UCLA is my best path, coach. I get that, and by the way, I'm playing wherever I go because I'm pretty good. That's what I try to tell some guys. Like when people start really trying to dissect rosters, it's like, look, you're a pretty good player, man. Like, when we start talking about certain type of kids, it's like, they're playing wherever they go. They're better than college guys right now. Some of them. I mean, we're not talking about the top 100. We're talking about 4 or 5 guys that are like that. So, it's interesting. But though, to your point, the days of signing 6 high school guys, I mean, nobody's doing that.
So
maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so either. I mean, maybe a couple, and then you wait for the transfer portal. But we've talked about this. Yeah, you don't know, but we've talked about this. So how
do you know how many scholarships is what you were saying? We're saying to people
exactly.
You don't know how many scholarships you're going to have.
Right. So
you can say, well, yeah, you do, coach. You got this senior. Well, that's the old days.
Yeah.
That's with nobody leaving for the NBA or the portal. I mean, the old days would say, well, you have Kobe and Lazar seniors. So, you have 2 scholarships. No, you could have way more than that.
Yeah. So we're talking about the one and dones, and there are guys that you recruit out of high school, but you and I have talked about it. There's now that other level, let's say the Jalen Clarks, that kind of level that now, like you would just took him, I think 5 years ago. Now, maybe because you're UCLA and there's a lot of guys who might bounce back, the theory might be they go someplace else for a year or 2.
Oh, yeah.
And you watch and see what happens, and then maybe they want to transfer.
Maybe, but that's a danger. I mean, if you really believe in a guy, and some of the guys I'm talking about, or a guy I'm talking about, you really believe in him, that this guy's a winner, you better get him. You better not let him go somewhere else. Now, I think there'll be some guys definitely that you're not sure how good they are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And they may go to smaller places. But like when I saw Jalen Clark, it was like, look, he's everything I believe in. Like I should just quit if I don't offer this guy. Everything I ever believe in about winning and effort and somebody that's willing to do things that other guys don't want to do, which is a credit to Neil, his dad, that taught him that, that this is your way on the floor, that this is your secret sauce. Back when he had to fight for playing time with the Mobleys and Jules and Johnny and all them guys with the Compton Magic. So, you can't, if you got a guy that you really believe in, you better get him. The question becomes, does he panic and transfer if he doesn't play as much as he thinks or somebody else thinks he should be playing as a freshman?
Yeah.
So that's why I say when I brought up earlier, Tracy, like, guys that really believe that UCLA is their pathway to becoming who they want to become, to getting the education they want, to becoming a part of the brotherhood of the all the guys, the alumni that have played here, that all that stuff resonates with them. So they're not leaving as soon as something doesn't go their way.
Right.
that they really understand the value of everything that goes on with going to school here and being, historically a part of this program. I think when you mentioned earlier, I mean, I appreciate your giving me a compliment, my staff a compliment, but some of the guys that are here, some of the guys that are transferring out, they saw a pathway that they just weren't going to play. And it wasn't just that, like Will McClendon and I are very close. I love Will McClendon. So it was more, he understood the value of the UCLA degree. He loved being, everything about UCLA, but, he wants to play. And you're a kid, you understand that. So, he understood all the things we're talking about that they resonated with him. I mean, he didn't want to walk away from it. I mean, he looked at his career and thought, I almost have to get for me to be able to play, because he saw who was coming in. So that's the sad part of all this. Obviously the positive, it could be better for Will in his career. I try to stop myself. I get sad when I start thinking about that. But it could be better for him in his career. And that's just the way it is. But you got to recruit guys, Trace. I think, that you're talking about that guy that's going to stay, right? That's what you're alluding to.
Yes. Yeah.
Finding that guy that's going to stay.
Yep.
And I think, when you look at our class, one thing I think that I like the most about, and again, Dave's, I didn't say anything. I appreciate Dave being my compliance director. We didn't talk about a transfer I can't talk about. But I can realize it, right? That having guys that grew up in Southern California on your team that really appreciate the tradition and want to be a part of, hanging the 12th banner here, and just being a part of the brotherhood of the alumni, and just everything that UCLA basketball always has stood for and will stand for, regardless of who's in my chair. I think so. Having some of those guys like Sky, who always wanted to come here, Dylan, Trent, guys like that, guys I can't mention, that I think that's important. I think those are the type of guys that are more likely to stay and, want to be around and not on the fast track to the portal. So you got to try to get guys that understand the value of everything that this program brings to the table, on the floor, off the floor, for your future, the connections, networking, as well as the degree piece of it.
All right. Well, that was a tight hour and 20 for us. Thanks so much for your time, Coach. Really appreciate it.
No workouts today, so we're good.
Wanted to maybe ask one last question about.
You got me out of buying lunch for my staff, so I appreciate.
There we go. That was the goal. One last question about some of the out of conference games that are getting on your schedule.
What's
how
out
do those? Let's see.
I have to totally. I get the text from all the guys. Rothstein's always all over it. It's like a big deal that somebody's going to release who we're playing and all that. So the CBS is North Carolina, right?
Yes. Yep.
I don't know if they released that.
That has been out. Yes.
That's back in the Garden. And then hopefully, I don't know if it's released yet. Hopefully, I think they're still hammering out details, but Gonzaga, Arizona, and then New Mexico.
Yeah. Those have all been out. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be Gonzaga in LA, Arizona and Phoenix, New Mexico and Vegas. It's just hard it's hard to do for us. It's hard to do home and homes because you don't want to schedule 2 years. I want to feel out the Big Ten. My goal was to not schedule anything to have to go back east. I already knew we were going to have to do it for the CBS Sports Classic.
Right.
So, I don't want to put the guys on the plane headed east more than you have to. Because not only do you have the games in the Big Ten, you have the Big Ten tournament. So, the concern with that becomes try to have a great year and get a seed where you can stay. They're going to keep you in the West. the first weekend, because you don't want to. You're flying out. You know how many times you want to fly east? You just went to Indianapolis or wherever the tournament's going to be. Then you come back and go back again for the first round. So just you're trying to limit travel. I mean, that's my big thought process with this. Build a schedule, you know, and try to figure out the Big Ten as we go. So I didn't want to. I'm already locked in, you know, with the CBS thing for a few more years. It's good to lock in Arizona and Gonzaga and stay in the West. And you know, New Mexico and the neutral thing. Just Richard and I are very close friends. He's like a younger brother to me. His dad's like an older brother. I'm part of their family, which I love him for that. And you know, we were talking about trying to get a game, and yeah, it was easy. So just trying to make sure we get those details done. It's easy to hop up to Vegas. You know, it's an easy trip. So, but didn't want to do a 2-year thing because I want to feel this first year of the Big Ten out.
Sure.
And then see kind of how do you build your schedule for the following year? Because we all know, you know, that's the biggest question I get asked, man. You know, travel, how you going to do it? You know, they won't put out. I know people saying, well, when's the schedule come out? Well, you know who we play. You can kind of look at it and see when you play, you know, Indiana, you're going to play Purdue.
Right.
You know, when you play Penn State, you're going to play Rutgers or or Maryland. You know, if those, you know, they're going to keep you as regional as they can keep you.
Sure.
I mean, you know, wasn't a shock that the 3 teams we played twice are Pac-12 teams.
Right.
So, but the travel, you know, it's a concern, right? And you know, I would add before we go to talk about Dave Andrews, our new strength and conditioning coach. I think he's as important a hire as I've had in my career of getting him back with me. That's how much I know. See, because I know, you know, I know who he is. I know how good he is. I think, you know, for us, I appreciate the guys. My first 5 years it worked here, but you know, I said this in the release. In recruiting, you're saying that, look, you're going to have the best of everything when you come here. My coaching staff, I think, are awesome. You got the blend of experience and youth of guys that all the guys I know love, and they're all about caring. They care about kids first and your development. They're just so super talented coaches. And I thought we needed to get to where we had the best in the strength and conditioning. So I went to Martin Jarman with that, and you know, the athletic department. I need to, you know, we have to be able to have the best in this area, and it's going to be huge for Diamara and a lot of our guys. Our guys already know, and Dave, you know, that's after 2 weeks of workouts. If you were to reach out to those guys, they'll tell you. I promise you, they'll tell you. I mean, he's that big of a difference maker for us. So able to get him off the gridiron, man. Those helmet, you get him away from those helmet heads.
Those helmet heads.
Getting back to basketball where he started with me, even though he played football at Ohio State, but he started his career with me at Cincinnati when he was very young. You know, so 2006 we started together. We raised the Titanic there together. Back in the day, it was not easy, but we were lockstep in hand. So I had super excited to get him, and you guys will like this because I know where you guys live. I had to make, you know, people from back east, they see LA and all they know is Hollywood, right? Or LAX. I have to, so, you know, when I got him out here and drove him out to 101 and he saw, like, you know, he saw Agora Hills. He, you know, the further he went out, he's like, oh my, you know, he saw horses and farms, and you know, he's like, oh, I'm in. I mean, once he saw like that part of it, and he said his traffic in Pittsburgh was so awful that it couldn't be worse here. But he's going to find out that it will be.
Oh, so you fooled him a little on that. Yeah.
He thinks it was worse in Pittsburgh, but we'll see about that. But he comes to work so early, it's not going to matter when you drive at 5 a.m. But yeah, when he got out there by Tracy, you know, he was like, oh, this is great. So as you can tell, I know what a difference he's going to make for our kids.
Hey, one thing I wanted to bring up before we go. Coach Cronin went off at 17-1.
How about that? Yeah, I don't know who owns that horse.
There's a guy on our forum who says he owns the horse.
That really? Tell him I said thank you. I bet on him.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yes, I was home. I saw it, and I said, well, I got to bet something. I can't. I'm while sitting here. I got it on the TV. If this horse wins and his name Coach Cronin, I got to have something on it.
That would have been bad if he would have won and you didn't put any money.
Yeah, I saw the ownership group was like Galloping Bruin something stable, something like that. But I do not know. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honor. Because my friends to mess with me, Eric Johnson, who plays in the NHL, and David Kenny of West Trucks, they named the horse Cronin, who was so talented he never raced. And I didn't know until the horse was like on the workout tab, and they did it. They snuck it in on me to mess with me. But you know, I got them because EJ won the Cup, won a big stake race last weekend. So, and I named that one after Eric. So, but yeah, Cronin never hit the races. So, but tell those guys, tell that guy going to tell him I said thanks. I want a little money on it.
And also, I did pretty well at Santa Anita without your help the other week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did okay.
I remember you told me you were going out. I can't.
Jeff Siegel hooked me up.
Oh yeah, Jeff.
Yeah,
he's a Bruin. A lot of Bruins out at the races.
Yeah.
You know, I met out there one time. The guy that wrote, oh my gosh, I was going to bring his name up, and he wrote Forrest Gump. Eric,
oh, really?
Eric, is it Eric Raw? Oh, anyway, guy wrote Forrest Gump. Great guy. He's a Bruin. A lot of guys like that out there, man. Yeah. You know, in the Hollywood, we got a lot of followers. My buddy Neil Moritz, Fast and the Furious, told me he used to sneak into Pauley Pavilion, and one time he fell through the ceiling and landed in the where the Booker Turner was getting dressed.
Eric Roth.
Eric Roth. Great guy.
I would not want to see Booker Turner getting dressed.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Booker, but yeah.
I heard the Bruins never lost with him on the game. That's the story.
It's true. Well, thanks, Coach, for this. This was amazing.
Good to catch up, guys. I know we were going to do it a few weeks ago when I was having I had the worst cold in the history. I think a lot of people were fighting it. So I will see you in Phoenix, my friend.
Yeah, I'll see you there in a couple of weeks.
Can't wait to go to Phoenix when it's 100. It was 118 there.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful Glendale, Arizona.
Yeah, for our listeners, that's what section this high
Section
school
7. Yeah, all the West Coast high school teams, 175 of them.
But famously, it gets colder the deeper you get into the summer there, right? No,
man, I won't know because I'm not going back.
That gives you no solace when you got to walk a half a mile from where we stay at the hotel to the State Farm Arena. It's crossing the street, and you are melting by the time you get there.
See, man, you're cheap. You don't play. I'm dry. I'm not walking. I'm driving. It's too hot.
I know that's true. It's across.
So he's saving the.
You're going to walk with me this time. You're going to walk across that street.
It's way too hot. I'll melt. I mean, literally, I'll be sunburnt from the hotel to wherever wherever the Cardinals play, whatever they call that place. So
remember, 90% Irish, Tracy. 90%.
Yeah,
Irish.
I got it. I'm kind of relating. I'm not Irish at all, but I got the skin.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate you having me, and get me out of buying my staff lunch.
All right.
Here we go.
Mick Cronin, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you all again next time.
All right, we'll see you guys.
See ya.